this session onward, we are going to start our deliberation on the shape of economy, how it evolves using the different geometrical patterns, because the graph itself is a geometrical expression of different values of the four economic forces of consumption, income, production, and expenditure. In previous lectures, we have discussed how attractive, how forces of attraction work, and how the forces of repulsion affect the economic activities. And now we are going to exactly replicate the same economic interaction in the shape of economy, how they behave by changing the geometrical expressions that is basically represented in square and triangle. Of course, the sphere of the economy is the resultant of whatever variations are taking place within the square of stability. The first part we are going to discuss is the square of economy, that is SOE, square of economy. Is all the forces put together, they form a perfect square. If the forces of consumption exactly equals to the force of income, production, and expenditure, that is one equilibrium. Second equilibrium is income when it equals to consumption, production, and expenditure. And third stage is production when it equals to consumption, income, and expenditure. And the fourth perfect equilibrium is when the expenditure equals production, consumption, and income. The four fundamental activities is represented by four poles. Four poles means from where you draw the line connecting other poles, you will create, it will automatically, if the forces are equal, the lines will also be equal. In that case, a perfect square will take place. This is the geometrical expression of stability of the economy. In a stability of economy means perfect equilibrium between the four forces of economic activity of consumption, income, production, and expenditure. I think now the square of economy and the stability of economy is dependent on equality between the four forces of economic activity. Interestingly, you will find that in most of the economic phenomena, there is always a reservation kept that subject to exceptions. This economic logic is this, means demand will increase proportionate to supply and supply will change due to certain supply will equal to demand. This is the stability subject to certain exceptions, like for if the demand is elastic, if the demand is inelastic, the rule applied differently. In market forces also, you will find that there are always exceptions that subject to this exception, this rule will prevail, otherwise it will not prevail in all the circumstances. But this kind of variation is not possible in the shape of economy, the graph of shape of economy, because it is drawn due to certain mathematical calculations. Certain equations can be formed, and it has been formed. And these mathematical and geographical patterns, they don't allow you to consider exceptions. Exceptions, mathematics में there is nothing called exception, in science there is nothing called exceptions. Whatever is before you in a shape, you can't say it is subject to this exception. It will hold true in all the circumstances, in all the conditions. Therefore, it has a major advantage over the traditional way of economic, how the economic theories have been developed. Now, we will consider that the square has, if it has four perfect arms, it will form a perfect square, and each pole is joined by the another two lines. It means two angles, one vertical to it and another horizontal to it, will always take place. In a perfect square, the angle will always be at a 90 degrees. In case of any variation in the stage of perfect equilibrium, since four lines are exactly equal, therefore on all the four poles of economic activity, perfect 90-degree angle of perfect 90-degree angle will always be joined by another two poles from the origin of it. It means that the calculation, as soon as any pole is weak, or if any pole is getting stronger compared to other pole, the variation will immediately be there in the angle of two lines which is joining to a particular pole of economic activity. For example, if the income pole gets a higher value, in that case the line originating from the pole of income will have a different angle of joining line to another two pole of consumption and expenditure. So this variation can always be calculated and can be used to interpret that how much variation is taking place. So this is the importance, how a perfect square represents the equilibrium between the four forces, and if there is a variation in any of the pole, then to what degree it is causing the perfect square as compared to the perfect square, because the resultant square will not be perfect, it will be imperfect, because one of the line is of a different length. Therefore the it will imperfect square will show you that economy is not stable, because the first condition of stability is this, that all the forces, all the lines must be exactly equal to other three remaining or four remaining, all the four arms should be of same length. Now you will find that in this square of economy there is no mention of volume of economy or the atmosphere of the economy, because production and expenditure refers to atmosphere. So we don't have to give another nomenclature here. We just in earlier stages also of discussion we have explained you that it is just to show you that why there is a volume and why there is a atmosphere. Because in this square there are four poles of volume already depicted there. So you can safely assume that these two poles represent volume, and another two poles, that is expenditure and production, this belongs to atmosphere of the economy or the supply atmosphere, and other division is the demand volume, because income and consumption means nothing but a demand volume. Interesting thing, you will find that a different value can be given to different poles to represent very poor nations and very rich. Same graph of same size can represent the economy of very poor nation also, middle income nation also, and very prosperous income also, because it is always equivalent to. Different values can be assigned to the pole strength. So, in case of a very small economy, small or relatively lower value, equivalent value will be given to the income of that country. Very comparatively lower value to consumption of that economy. Very little comparative value to production and expenditure value. Similarly, in case of a very rich economy, very advanced economy, higher values can be given to consumption and production, income and expenditure. So, this is the very basic objective of explaining you that what is the perfect square of the economy. This is called SOE in short form, because when we come to the formulation of equation part of it, we cannot always say repeatedly that square of economy, stability of economy. So therefore, the short abbreviations are used for to denote different geometrical pattern. In following lectures, we will, when we progress, I will explain you what they stand for and what is the meaning of it, and how values and what interpretations can be drawn by deviation from the ideal point and the actual point. That is the most fundamental objective of shape of economy, that is simultaneously, as soon as you have a actual shape, and if there is a deviation from the ideal shape, then what it means, to which direction the distortion is taking place, and what is the value assigned to it, and to what degree it has really been disturbed. So immediately we can focus our attention to restore it to ideal shape. Efforts of planning and effort of monetary discipline can be directed to immediately take corrective action to bring it to the as near possible ideal shape. That is the basic objective of the shape of economy. And in lectures to follow, because the next lecture will be about the sphere of the economy. If there is a perfect square, a perfect square can only exist in perfect sphere. The sphere of the economy. I have used the term that the square of stability is delivered in the envelope of sphere of economy. It means that if you draw a sphere that touches the four poles of the stability of economy, square of stability of economy, you will draw a perfect sphere. Otherwise, in a perfect sphere only, it's a geometrical fact, it's a mathematical fact as well, that a perfect square can only be achieved in a perfect sphere. Therefore, any deviation in the four forces of stability of the economy, that is consumption, income, and expenditure production, will cause square to assume a different shape other than the perfect square. And in that case, if you draw a sphere that touches the four corners of that new square, the outcome you will find that it is no longer a perfect sphere. It will move away from the position of ideal shape. And this is the basic objective of drawing the shape of the economy, that how to achieve, because by comprehension of a just in a disturbed or distorted square, a common man cannot draw the conclusion that how it is different from the ideal one. But for a common man, he knows what is the circle, because every morning he sees the sphere of the sun, and every moonlight, full moonlight, he sees the perfect sphere of moon. Therefore, sphere is by appearance, he is more familiar to it. He knows also that sphere means what, and if there is any disturbance in the shape, it will give immediately impression to even a layman who doesn't understand economics and mathematics involved in this, but just watching the shape of the sphere of economy, he will immediately understand that something is wrong with our economy. And if it distortion is too much, if the shape is showing not a perfect sphere but something other than the perfect sphere, in that case he will understand, he won't need any explanation that what is the deviation from the stage of ideal shape. And that is exactly the objective of drawing the shape, that the shape should have scientific sanctity and mathematical logic as well. It is not now the conflict of ideologies, capitalism and socialism and communism, nothing like that. It is simply a mathematics, a science. Nobody can dispute why we resort to scientific reasoning, because scientific reasoning is not craving for a different interpretation by different people. You can't doubt that because of the gravity of the earth, everything that goes up will have to come down. It is a scientific fact that it is due to everything falls back to the earth because of the force of the gravity. There is no political ideologies involved in explaining the scientific phenomena. Therefore, to reduce the chances of friction of ideologies and a different interpretation of economic development, you need to follow a scientific and logical, mathematically proven logic that what is the real state of our economy and all the economies put together, that is the world economy. Because right now we are discussing about the shape of the national economy, but if you integrate it, it will give you a picture of changing dimensions of world economy as well. So this is the importance that any deviation, because I am referring to another graph to you that represents the distances from the center of gravity in the sphere. What is most important fact to understand that from the center of gravity, the distances from all the directions are equal. And if there is a shape that is little away from it, the distances won't remain same. One direction will show a higher distance and another direction may show a lesser distance. In that case, it won't remain a perfect sphere. So, this is how the deviations that naturally it is impossible, because it's a also scientific fact that if you any celestial body, if it takes assumes a perfect sphere, it is dead. You need to have some inequality in the shape to keep on going, to remain alive. Otherwise, you won't find that why the earth has a elliptical orbit around the sun. Almost all the planets of solar system are having elliptical orbits around the sun, and because of the distances, they take different time limit to take to complete one orbit of the sun. Now I won't go further into it, because that's a matter of cosmology, and this has been discussed in the first book of cosmic concept and economic development. I am not once again going to elaborate all those facts. I am just going to introduce you to why it cannot assume perfect square, because it is never possible to have a perfect income equilibrium with consumption and a perfect equilibrium in supply atmosphere, that is production and expenditure. I have already discussed it, that it is constantly changing. The whole strength of income will always keep on changing, consumption pattern will always keep on changing, new technologies will also always keep on changing, the production techniques, use of raw material. Therefore, the expenditure involved in this will also keep on changing. Therefore, a perfect sphere is ideal, which we try to follow. But how much we are near to it, that should remain our objective. Economic development should have the objective that we should try to be as much closer to it, not assume the perfection, that it is not possible at all. It can never exist that way. Therefore, all the considerations and what resultant geometrical patterns, what they denote and what they signify in terms of economic, when they are interpreted in economic logic, that we will discuss further in following sessions. Till then, thanks.